Welcome to City University of Seattle's Doctoral Residency. I'm Dr. Joel Domingo of the School of Applied Leadership. This session is on academic writing. I want to start out by sharing this slide from you. It's from a comic strip called PhD Comics, and if you have never seen this before, I encourage you to take a look and subscribe. It's a real humorous look at doctoral life by someone who has gone through a doctorate, and so I think it's a great funny cartoon. See on the left side, everyone has different writing styles. Some people think carefully about each word before typing it, and some people on the other extreme keep pressing random buttons and hope something coherent comes out. And how you write, hopefully, is somewhere in that spectrum and not toward the edges. And so with that, I want to talk about, in this session, what is academic writing? Academic writing, I'm going to cover some things in critical thinking and a concept called Bloom's Taxonomy. Many of you are familiar with that. And then the heart of this presentation is developing as scholars and doctoral writers, writing with application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And if you think back to your earlier classes and perhaps in your 606 class that you may have taken from Dr. Flores, say, you were exposed to some of these ideas, and that course had you think through these. But if you haven't, or if you have not seen that in a long time, this is a great review. Third, we're going to talk about effective writing. And so just some grammar tips, some tips to think about when you're writing, words to avoid, etc. And then finally some question and answers and final thoughts. So, what is academic writing? It's good, clear writing. Good writing is clear thinking made visible. I love this graphic there. Academic writing is clear. It's formal. There's no slang in it. Ain't no slang in academic writing. Evidence from other experts. There is references involved. This is evidence. This statement is evidenced by, for example, addresses a specific question, that it's focused. It doesn't ramble on. Academic writing is not creative writing. It is logically structured, and it is grammatically correct. So those are some elements of academic writing, and a little bit more on it. It's abstract in thought and clear in tone. Now, what does that mean? Academic topics are focused on ideas and concepts, and so tone refers to the precision of the language used to describe the idea and concept. It's supported by the research. It is based on critical thinking. And so what is critical thinking? It's the ability to engage in reflective and independent thinking. It means questioning ideas and assumptions. It means to identify, analyze, and solve problems systematically. Critical thinking is addressing the relationships between claims and the evidence given. It's openness to new ideas and appropriate skepticism. Aristotle said it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Critical thinking is all of these and more. Many of you have seen this wheel. It's Bloom's Taxonomy. It was created in the mid-50s under the leadership of educational psychologist Dr. Benjamin Bloom. And what Bloom wanted to do is promote higher forms of thinking in education, such as analyzing concepts, processes, procedures, and principles, rather than just remembering facts or rote learning. And so this wheel, the higher level thinking is on the top, whereas the lower level thinking is on the bottom. And it's a cyclical wheel. So you go from knowledge, let's say, on the left side, you start with knowledge. Can you recall the facts? Can you recall the, 10 best so-and-so, the top movie of the century, for example. Name 5 of the greatest rock and roll artists of all time. That's knowledge. Comprehension, it takes a little bit higher step in learning, that the student changes information to symbolic form and language, to identify, to interpret it, then to application. How does this apply? What we're focused on here in the doctoral program, as you have been throughout your program and classes, is analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. These are higher level types of writing, and how do you demonstrate that in writing? That's what we're talking about here in this. So again, this is all great and great theory, Bloom's taxonomy, critical thinking, yeah, but what does this mean for me practically in my dissertation? And I just want to note that this is good not just for a dissertation, but for any type of writing in your classes. If you're currently in a class, try to institute these concepts. These are going to be helpful for you as you go through. So the first thing is a thing called application. And you have this image here. Knowledge is like paint. It does no good until it is applied. Application means just selecting the main ideas that relate or directly or indirectly to the topic you're right about. So application, how does this look? So here's a formula, a framework, if you will, and you'll see this throughout all the types of writing, where you have a section highlighted in black, a second section in blue, and a third in red. So the first step you do in application is provide the context of the article or book. It needs to be clear why you chose it. That's the rationale. So you're going to identify the specific component and then apply the component to your specific situation. 3 steps. The why is going to be critical because you want to provide rationale why you're including it. Okay, so here's an example. Context, identify, and apply. So provide the context, identify, and then apply it. I'll read this here. Leaders at XYZ organization are not ready to integrate situational leadership into its culture. In a book discussing the effectiveness of leadership approaches, Nordhaus, 2013, suggested that the effectiveness of the situational leadership approach depended on the leader's ability to know where their subordinates were on the developmental continuum. The application here, when the leaders of XYZ organization tried the situational approach, they realized that their leadership styles did not match the developmental levels of their teams. Their expectations were high when teams were not adequately developed to operate at this level, and so on and so forth. So, context, gave the context, gave the identification of what the citation is from Nordhaus, and then the application of it. That's application. Now, the next higher step in Bloom's is analysis level writing. Analysis involves looking at the component parts, patterns, and themes. Now you see, I love this image here of the Palm Jumeirah and the world. This is from Dubai, and those are islands. And so those are all man-made islands, but the islands nonetheless were made to come up to a pattern, part, or theme. Here are the steps in analysis. Step 1 is you're going to share the overall context, cite your source, you're going to break it down into the parts, and then apply the parts that are relevant to your position. For example, again, leaders at XYZ organization, so on and so forth. In an article about the benefits of culture of coaching on long-term management goals, Lindbaum listed 4 characteristics of coaching. And here are the components: constant feedback, discussing expectations, top management commitment, and so forth. And then you see the application. His conclusion of coaching being listed as a core competency and a strategic goal emphasizes the level of importance that coaching must have with executive management. Leaders at XYZ organization have some steps to take before they will be ready to establish and sustain a coaching culture. That is analysis. You're looking at the component and then applying that component. Okay? Synthesis is a different type of writing where you combine ideas into a new whole. So, combining the color red and yellow create orange. Pretty basic, right? Here's how it works. 3 steps again. The first source, break it down into the parts. That's the analysis piece. You do the same with the second piece. So the first 2 steps on here is that you break down all your parts, and that all you're going to do is combine these parts into a new whole. This is, I really like synthesis because you're creating something. Think of it as the academic mashup, okay? And so I have a longer example here that I will not read altogether, but the point is that you want to break it down. So the top section here in the dark text lists all the different components, breaks it down into 5 areas, for example. The blue section, breaks it down also. Now, the key here is in the red. Combine them. Combining these attributes of a coaching culture, it is clear that top management must drive the culture through their behaviors, and so on and so forth. So you see there's part 1 in the dark text, part 2 in the blue text, and the result is combining them together. A key word, this author put it pretty easily, combining these attributes. Here's what the synthesis was. Now there's some tips on synthesis. Synthesis writing should be based on themes rather than the source articles. So in other words, just don't say the article did this and the article 2 did this, and so here's the combination of article. Think about the themes that are common to both and then combine those themes. Use the main points from the article. Don't just sequentially present the articles. This we see a lot of in dissertation writing, is that you want to extract the main point that's thematic throughout. So what happens, especially in chapter 2, is that students just say, this researcher found this researcher found this researcher found this. That's great. But that's not synthesis. Synthesis is when you say researcher 1 found this, 2 found this, 3 found this. Thematically, they all say this. Now, if you were to combine them, then they would say this. That is synthesis. The third level of writing is evaluation. Now, evaluation is important because you're going to be making judgments about the quality of something, and the key is this. That judgment is based on objectively defined criteria. So instructors use rubrics to evaluate work, leaders use performance criteria to evaluate employees, consultants even use established criteria to evaluate an organization. Researchers use objective information to evaluate the articles they select. All right, so here's the pattern for evaluation. You want to first of all provide the context. Again, context is very important in everything. Specify the criteria discussed, and then judge the situation based on the criteria that you just presented. Here's, again, a lengthy example, but I'll read a little bit of it. Dart text, the employee being coached may be experiencing a setup-to-fail syndrome. Manzoni and Barsu define this term as a frequently occurring scenario, so on and so forth. Criteria: in the last year, supervisors at XYZ organization have noticed one employee's declining attendance at meetings, so on and so forth. Now, here's the key, the judgment. Given these observations, the setup-to-fail syndrome appears to be occurring between this employee and his 2 supervisors. So set up the context. Here's the criteria in the blue text. The key is the judgment. Based on this evidence, here is the evaluation. So there's tips. Go beyond just using sources to make a point. So don't just say, well, here's the source and here's the point. Evaluation is stronger when there are multiple points of judgment. In other words, when you use multiple criteria that say the same thing, that refer, and then you're using all that criteria to make an evaluation, that's good. You want to present multiple sides of an argument. So let's say you came up with an evaluation and a statement. You can also say, had this been a different situation and the criteria were based on this, here's how it may have played out. Conclusions are based on the criteria. Again, everything is criteria based. So again, that is a brief jaunt into application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation in writing. Many of you have seen this, but again, I encourage you to stop and take a look. Practice. Go back to your own papers and see, am I doing this type of level of writing? Am I not just doing knowledge level writing, but am I doing analysis? Am I doing application? Am I doing synthesis? That will greatly help your papers, even currently. So let's talk about some of the practical steps. How do you actually do this? I'm going to give you some tips here in terms of phrasing. So here's some good principles to think about, and it's in phrasing. Cut, 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 and then after you've cut some more. Learn to part with your words. On the left-hand side, this is what we have seen many students write, and here's a better way to say it. Sometimes we've seen students say all 3 of the subjects performed exceedingly well. Well, just say the 3. Fewer in number. These results were fewer in number. Just say fewer. Or this one I see a lot of. This effect gives rise to the fact that. Well, just say this causes. In all cases. Well, what about always? That's an easier way. In a position to, can, in close proximity to. That's another one. The subjects were in close proximity to the researcher. Well, near. The subjects were near the researcher. One that I see all the time, and I've never seen a paper without this, is in order to address this, just say to. Simpler. Clean it up. Another thing I want you to do is run a global search in your papers for the word very. Very is good, or as well as. I use that a lot in correspondence, and I'm continuing to unlearn that. But as well as and very, unless a person has used very in a quote as direct data, take out very. Doesn't help. Okay, wordiness is another thing. Again, in cutting your paper, wordiness, in spite of the fact that you can just use although. In the event that, just use if. What about new innovations? Well, innovations are always new, so just use the word innovations. The results were one and the same. Well, the results were the same. Period of 4 days, shrink it down to 4 days. Personal opinion, well, opinion's always personal, so just make it opinion. Shorter and longer in length, well, shorter, longer. You don't have to say in length. Simplifying, keeping things and phrasing simple. Wordiness, it's a skill to develop. Another one is the verb to be. Okay, so to be is interesting because, I'll give you an example. There are many students who like writing. There are. That's the to be verb. Better. Many students like writing. That's simple, it's direct, etc. The thing is, watch out for weasel words. So we can't go on using up the Earth's resources at this rate and expect mankind to survive as civilized species beyond the 21st century. This is much, obviously, without a doubt, clearly evident. Well, the weasel words are the much. We can't go on. This whole phrase, this whole sentence is suggestive. It's persuasive. You don't want to be that. You want to be factual and pretty dry. The other thing here is, who's we? We can't go on. So watch out for that. So another thing is evidence. Careful with your opinion. I see this a lot just in papers in general. Evidence. It's always fine to trust, but verify. For instance, Pride and Prejudice is a great piece of literature. It is, and it's great. And I personally think Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is better. But Pride and Prejudice is a great piece of literature. According to who? Here's another one. Coral reefs have degraded since Europeans introduced farming along the tropical coastline. Well, yes, but how much? According to what? I mean, how much have they degraded? Is there a percentage? Is there less? Give some citations. Business has a responsibility only to its shareholders. Well, great, but why? Who says that? How do you verify that? Again, back your stuff up. That's the whole key here with evidence. Another thing is hidden assumptions, and this is a subtle form of evidence. Here's an example. If you women would stay home, maybe we could just solve America's unemployment problems. Ronald Reagan, one of our presidents, said this. He said this regarding unemployment, which was interesting. So consider some of the assumptions here, that all women could have men to support them. Women are taking jobs away from men. Women don't need jobs since they can stay at home. Men want and will take women's jobs, and work for women is a kind of indulgence allowed by their men. All hidden assumptions, all incorrect assumptions, but this was said. Another thing is parallelism, and this is a subtle one. I catch this a lot. If you want to be a good doctor, you should study hard, critically think about the medical literature, and you should be a good listener. Yes, absolutely, those are great things, but that's bad writing. Here's a better way to say it. If you want to be a good doctor, you must study hard, listen well, and think critically about the medical literature. Imperative, imperative, imperative. That's the ensuring that those statements match up in tense. Here's another way. If you want to be a good doctor, you must be a good student, a good listener, and a critical thinker. Noun, noun, noun. So they have to be parallel. Anytime you use sequence, make sure that that sequence matches up. Wordiness is another tip. You may often find that there are a number of words contained in your writing that can be safely eliminated without any kind of danger to your meaning whatsoever. Well, clean it up. You may find words that can be eliminated without any danger to your meaning. That's the same thing. So make sure you clean up those unnecessary words. Go back. Again, that's why dissertations are iterative. You're going to look at it. I know in my dissertation I went through multiple drafts, and I know you will too. Misrepresentation is another one. And this is, again, a subtle one, but something that I see a lot. The room was painted blue because the sky is blue, Domingo 2016. Wrong. In the most recent work on the philosophy of color, Domingo 2016 said the sky is blue. The room was painted blue to look like the sky. That is correct. So the key in misrepresentation is, what is the key point that the researcher or researchers are trying to make, and summarize that. And don't add it. I see this a lot when people give a example of something happening in the workplace, and then they give a citation from the research that had nothing to do with the workplace. That's misrepresentation. Finally, anthropomorphism. Yes, I love the Ninja Turtles. But anthropomorphism is attaching human qualities and attributes to non-human things. This article discussed. Well, articles can't discuss because an article is not human. So Scholar 2016 discussed. Research has found. Well, research is this abstract concept. Researchers have found, better yet, or the best is, Scholar 1 and Scholar 2 found. So careful to apply things to non-human objects. This paper discusses, or this dissertation explored, anything like that. So academic writing, in summary, is clear, it's evidence-based, it's precise, it's logical. Bloom's taxonomy, higher order skills of application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation should be evident in your writing. This is critical. This has to be present, especially in a dissertation. And the key here is the way to develop clear writing is more writing. So write and write and write. And don't worry, you'll get better at it. I think what some of the things with a dissertation is, the first draft, it's not going to look like your final draft. And I'm glad it doesn't. Know that when I've looked at dissertations and I've worked with students, it's really neat. It's neat to see how students' writing has progressed from the first time they start their prospectus till their final defense. Clear night and day, and we could see the steps. And so think about that now. Maybe you want to start implementing some of these techniques now in your writing, and you'll see some great results because of it. So any questions, I again encourage you to ask your instructor, but I thank you for attending this session.